What's up, Fit Fam? Coach Ra here. I'm going to get right down to it. Today, we're talking about wellness. And we're going to talk about what judges want to see in wellness this year, this season. You know, it's kind of getting near the end of February. A lot of competitions about to start really taking place. Schedule's going to be happening, things going to be happening. And people want to know, what are they looking for in wellness in 2023? That's exactly what we're talking about. So I got both of our top two wellness athletes pulled up on the screen here. I'm going to be drawing all kinds of stuff for you. You know, just really going to make sure that you're seeing everything I'm talking about and all of this makes sense. You're going to get a lot of value out of the video, and we do a lot of these, so make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're not already, because this is gold, okay? It's pure gold, and if you want to get the gold, then, you know, you're going to want to be paying attention to what we're talking about. All right, so the reason we're looking at the top two wellness athletes from Olympia is because this is the top level echelon of the criteria. So when we look at these athletes, what this means is, you know, this is the judges saying, these are the best in this, these are the best in this division, this is the exemplifying the criteria, this is what we want to see. Now that trickles down all the way though to if you haven't even competed before, you've never done a show, it's your first show, you're coming in, you don't have to look like these athletes on the screen here, but you do have to fit the same kind of criteria, okay? So let's talk about what the criteria is. So wellness is this, you know, division where basically it came out to be a lower body dominant version of, you know, kind of what was bikini, okay? So if you look at these two athletes, we see a lot of lower body development, you know, this tapered look at the midsection, the width at the top of the shoulders, everything else. So this kind of gives us this over lower body dominant hourglass shape, meaning that, you know, in wellness, we want to see more lower body muscle, okay? So that's really what makes the wellness division its own type of division. You know, it's bikini from everything that's the waist up, but it's wellness when it's everything, you know, the waist down, and that's a lot of muscle. So let's talk about what makes these shapes actually happen here. All right, so when we look at kind of getting this tapered look, this tapered aesthetic, we see this across many divisions in bodybuilding, you know, like bikini, for example, we still get this kind of tapered aesthetic. And it comes from having a few different things happening for you. And we're seeing that in wellness as well. So shoulder development, absolutely key and critical, okay? So you see the roundness of the shoulders on both these athletes becomes very important to create this width. If you don't have that shoulder development, you're gonna be narrow, right? Your physique is gonna look more squared out versus if you have this full roundness to the shoulders. And this comes from a lot more than just, you know, training a couple overhead presses, doing all this and that. When you're talking about getting full round delts like this, we're talking about training the front deltoid, the lateral head of that deltoid, the rear delt in the back here, we'll see in a minute. I mean, this is really what creates that fullness and that look. Now you'll notice there's not striation, okay? We see some soft set lines and separation here, but there's no striation. And what I mean by striation is when you can literally see each visible muscle. You'll see that in much leaner divisions, you know, like figure, women's physique. In wellness, it's about this fullness, okay? This full shape, really what judges want to see totally come into play, and that's going to create that first bit of, you know, what we're going to call the hourglass shape of the upper body here, okay? That's how you get that width, in other words. Now, the arm development in wellness, I get a lot of questions about this on, you know, my Instagram and stuff like that. Hey, what's the deal with arms? Should I be training arms? What should I be doing? Yes, you should be training arms in wellness, but not too crazy, okay? You still want to have some development. You'll see the tricep, the bicep on both of these athletes here. You're still going to see that development, okay? But it's about the shape more than it is the size of that muscle. And if you actually train the arms too much, what's going to end up happening is you're going to make your shoulders appear smaller, and that is not what judges are looking for, okay? They want to see, you know, that shoulder width, that shoulder development. Primarily, arms are just looking to be symmetrical, so you do want to have a little bit of arm work, but it's not a huge area of focus. And here again, we'll see some soft lines, you know, some separation, but we're not seeing striation, deep muscle cuts, stuff like that, okay? So really, what we're looking at upper body primarily is going to be shoulders. Now, I get a lot of questions about chest. Should you be training chest, pectoral muscles? You know, I'm not having wellness athletes, bikini athletes often train chest. If I do, it's for a very specific reason. I think that, if you're training chest in wellness, you can get in the spot again where you could take away from your physique, okay? Building too much of the pec, all that, it's not going to be, beneficial to you. Again, this division is not like figure or women's physique, something like that, where it's more muscle, leaner. This is a division where we're really trying to get this shape and really nail this tapered look, and that's primarily going to come from the shoulders. Again, like I said, I will have some people maybe training chest if they need it, if there's some area, if there's something that I think it's going to really help bring up and enhance the upper body, but for most, it's not going to be an area of focus for the wellness division, and that's, not something that you need to really spend extra effort on. A lot of people worry about also like, okay, am I getting a muscular imbalance? No, if you're training properly on an upper body routine, you don't need specific direct chest work. I mean, you're going to get some secondary work doing many different upper body movements to the chest anyway, so it's not something you need to hypertrophy, in other words, like a men's open bodybuilder or something like that, okay? So let's move down the chain a bit here now. I want to look at the lats, okay? Because what we're talking about with this tapered look is really getting to the aesthetic of, trying to have the shoulders really create the width and then have the waist taper us in. And the more dramatic that looks, in a lot of ways, the better the physique is going to look on stage. And that's why we see top athletes in wellness division have this tapered look. So that taper comes from partially having good lat development, okay? So the lats here actually become more important in the front pose than they do in the back pose. So hear what I just said there. So lat development, right, that we would see from the back here in a minute, it's actually more important in the front pose than it is the back pose, in my opinion, and it's because of this development here that helps create that sweep into the waist, okay? It creates that really nice tapered aesthetic that goes from the shoulder right into the lat, right into the waist, and this is something judges want to see happen. So that lat can definitely help sweep, and when you're training the lats, you're looking to be, creating more width, higher width, not lower lat width per se, like you would see in some other divisions. We're talking about high lats that widen out the physique a bit, and that's really going to help create that tapered look. So those are the muscle groups that we're focusing on upper body. Another zone here is going to be this waist, obviously, okay? So we see the narrow waist effect becomes extremely crucial to really enhance that tapered look. Now, the waist is not going to be something that is overly trained, okay? You don't want to be doing a ton of ab work and stuff like that. You'll see there's some very soft lines in the abdominals of these athletes, okay? We're seeing some of this. This is not from hypertrophying these. This is from being in a certain level of conditioning, okay? In this oblique here, there may be some slight oblique training being done. When I'm training wellness athletes, if I think their physique needs it, I'm going to bring that in. But most of the time, what I'm trying to do with a wellness competitor is just, kind of shrink the waist down. And there's a number of ways to do that. And, people always ask me about waist trainers and all this. Yeah, you could try those, whatever. There's also exercises to do, such as vacuums and many other transverse abdominis, literally intra-abdominal, inside the body muscles you can train to help shrink the waist. Because if you can do that, if you can shrink it up, right, get really, really narrow, what that does is it allows you to, basically create the super tapered look, the super enhanced tapered look from the upper body width. Wow, there it is. There's the lats, and now we're into the waist, and it's, it's tiny. That's what judges want to see. It looks great on stage, and it also helps you in the lower body when we get there in just a second. But again, just want to note, most of the lines you see here come from condition. They're not coming from, hypertrophying these muscles, training with weights on the abdominals, doing weighted crunches, weighted no, none of that. Your goal in wellness should be to create tiny tapered waist look, and that's going to really help you. All right, so let's move to the lower body now. We talked about everything upper, and a lot of what we said could be similarly said for bikini division, things like that. But wellness division, what made wellness, and what the judges want to see is lower body dominance. So this means the lower body is going to carry more muscle than the upper body, period. And I know that looking at this with the untrained eye, some of you might be just getting into this or trying to understand this, or coaches are just now starting to coach for this. You might be like, okay, I'm having a hard time seeing it. You'll see it a lot more from the back, but we can see it here too, and I'll explain. So let's look first at the glutes, okay? So glutes in wellness are super hypertrophied. That means they're very, very developed. It is like the most important part almost of the physique in wellness for a number of reasons. The glutes, the quads, the hamstrings all tied together. But really, this glute development is what's going to create that shape, okay? That fullness is very key. You don't want to be too lean here. You don't want to be too striated again. You want to make sure you're getting fullness. And that comes from really hypertrophying the glute. One zone that I talk about a lot is this upper glute, okay? Upper glute zone, very, very important to have full. This is an area that a lot of athletes, they don't have. They're not training it correctly. They're not training it hard enough. They're not, being patient enough in order to build that, but it is ultimately crucial to keep fullness. You'll see some athletes, they come through and they have just this flat upper glute, and they may have more development, in the lower portions of the glute muscle, but the flat upper glute is just not going to help you on stage. And we'll talk about that more when we get to the back pose, but really you can see even here, it's so effective from even the front pose to really just concrete that fullness. So you want to have that fullness in the glute a lot. And a lot of you ladies out there that want to train for wellness, I'll tell you what, you're not training your glutes hard enough. You're not training them, frequently enough, and you're probably not being patient enough before you try to go cut. Having this development is key and critical, and you want to make sure you have that. A lot of athletes that try to go into wellness think that just overall, if they have a bigger lower body, they're going to be fine. That's the division. No, it's really more about making sure that the composition of the muscles that you have and the symmetry and the proportion is all right, as well as the fact that, you don't want to be in this zone where maybe you just have a lot of lower body fat. That's something that can happen to athletes, right? They can have a lot more body fat on the lower body and might think that that's making them lower body dominant, but no, the dominance comes from the muscle, and so that's what we see. Glute development, fullness, all of that's got to be there. That's what judges want to see 100%. Now, the next thing that's going to scream to you in these poses here is it's going to be the quads. So quads really come in and they're full, very, very full, and that is what judges want to see. They want to see the sweep kind of action that we're going to see on both of these athletes. You get to see the quad sweep effect here on the outer. We'll see more of that from the back pose here in just a minute, but realistically, all of that comes together, ties together, and it is, saying that the fullness is the key. And again, let's talk about this, okay? Soft lines, everybody, okay? Soft lines between the glutes and the quads here and there. Not deep cuts, not striations, not separations. Quads means 4. That's how many, muscles we actually have working in the quad. If these athletes were super lean, super shredded down like Physqiue or Women's Physique, you would see those quads really cutting through. You're not seeing that. Again, remember, you got to hit this conditioning just right in wellness division. They don't want you too hard. They don't want you too soft. You got to be just right, spot on, show these soft lines, and that's about it, okay? And when I mean soft lines, a lot of people get confused about this sometimes. It is still very lean as far as the standard is, but when we're talking about bodybuilding, we're talking about the whole universal women's divisions, bikini, wellness, figure, women's physique, women's bodybuilding. Wellness and bikini have, the softest level condition. It is still very conditioned, but it's softest compared to figure, women's physique, so on and so forth, okay? So just keep that in mind when we're looking at that. Now, hamstrings, the next biggest area to focus on. Got to have the fullness here in the development. You want to see that rounded kind of curve shape. This is an area, again, that often lacks with a lot of wellness athletes. I've been seeing a lot of women trying to get into wellness. They might have freakishly, dominant quads, but they're just not having the posterior chain development. They're not getting the glute right. They're not getting the hamstring right. And a lot of times that's a muscle activation issue, or, a form thing that can easily be fixed, or maybe it was just, how you've trained forever, but realistically, you got to have these all in proportion. So realistically, what we're looking at, and I keep saying realistically, is glute fullness, quad fullness, and the hamstring that ties it together. Again, if you over hypertrophy any of these zones, though, it's going to throw off that balance. So it's really about that harmony of having it all tie in right there together. And I just want to look at the side pose here. We're going to go to the back pose in just a second, but just kind of, this is transition. It's not even a scored pose per se, but a lot of people think that wellness is not super dominant lower body. It's just posed. Maybe you've seen your favorite wellness athletes in person. You think it's a lot of posing on stage. Well, this kind of side transition pose really highlights just how much more muscles going on lower body than upper. Okay, because you can see just how full the glutes are. There's that quad sweep I mentioned here. Both these athletes, a lot of muscle lower body compared to the upper. And again, you'll see here some lines and, you know, stuff like that, but not deep cut striation. So just want to show you that real quick as another insight into just how much more dominant the lower body is in this division. Let's take a look at the back pose now. Okay, so back pose is, you know, really they say bodybuilding is one from the back. They say that with many divisions. Wellness is definitely one from the back, because wellness is all about the lower body dominance, and this is where we get to see it exemplified the most. So real quick review up top, you know, that fullness to the shoulder we talked about, it's good to have that. This is where you get to see it. You get to see that shape still taking effect. Again, not deep cut striations, but that width that they want to see, okay? And that really ties that together. Now, hair will be down if you're competing NPC IFBB, which you should be. This, you know, is going to leave your hair. You don't want to show your back muscles off, and that means that remember when I said the lats are more important from the front pose than they are the back? That is why, okay? Because basically you're not really seeing the lat muscle development. The only thing it's going to do for you is that little bit of taper that you get here, and you can see how having the narrow waist really ties it all together to all important stuff. Okay, so really just review for the upper body. Now lower body, here's wellness. This is what our wellness division is. A lot of glute development, okay? Ladies, I'm telling you, when I'm telling you you're not training these frequently enough, you're not training glutes frequently enough, hard enough, with the right exercise for long enough and being patient, I'm being serious when I say that, because to get this amount of development, you really have to be training very hard and be following a very specific program to get this. You know, the tie-in, the hamstring tie-in, glute tie-in, everybody always wants this. A lot of competitors are looking for this. Judges do want to see some slight separation here, just like this, where, you know, you can see the difference between the low glute and the high hams, everything tying together there. That does not come from being overly lean, okay? A lot of competitors go chase the shreds. They want to get leaner and leaner, trying to get that glute tie-in, but realistically, that zone comes from instead actually having so much muscle there that it's pushing through the skin, pushing the conditioning, in other words, out. You're seeing the muscle because there's so much of it there, period, that it's just showing up no matter what, okay? So it's not all about the shreds to get a glute tie-in. It's about building more muscle. If you want better tie-in, build more glute, build more hamstring muscle, and that's why these are very prominent in wellness, less so in bikini, because they're not as muscular lower body, okay? But the actual glute structure, we talked about the shape, upper glute, very important. This is why. From the back pose, judges are sitting below you, okay? Wherever you're competing, they're sitting below you, and they're going to be looking up from the judging table onto a stage. If you don't have this upper glute zone, remember I mentioned some athletes have a flatter upper glute, they're not training it correctly, or, you know, it's just not growing for them for whatever reason. That means the glutes look flat now because they're looking up. So if you can imagine looking upward from a lower angle here, these shots are obviously straight on. The upper glute would look very flat compared, okay? So really got to make sure you have that upper glute fullness to create that roundness, that shape. Judges want to see this development. They want to see the glutes be rounded and shaped out totally from the upper glute and then follow into the fullness of the rest of the glute here, okay? And that is what we're seeing. This development you see, period, all around, comes from having just crazy full glute development. That's really what makes wellness division the wellness division. That, and then the quads, okay? So we talked about quads in the front pose being very big part of that pose. It's also a big part of the back pose, coincidentally, because the quads are so large, developed, hypertrophied in wellness, that we can see the quad sweep happening from the back pose. That is a lot of development in the quads to produce that. And, you know, to even say you can see the quads from a back pose, it's pretty crazy overall. So definitely an area of focus, that sweep aesthetic. Remember I talked about in the front, we want to see that in the wellness division, you know, for the back pose too. So really make sure you focus on exercises that hit that outer quad zone, get everything there. If you need examples of that, head over to my website, teamfflex.com, and we have a, you know, free trial where I can show you any of this stuff all the time. I'm not trying to plug anything, just trying to help you guys. It's free, no obligations, nothing. I can show you exact wellness style workouts. Check that out at my website. The link is in the bio here. And now let's tie it together with the hamstring, okay? So hamstring, again, not a super focus as far as development, because again, I said if you overdo the hamstring, it's gonna take away from the quads and the glutes. And, you know, our main focus in this wellness division is quads and glutes. We don't wanna overdo the hamstrings. The development will be there. That's what we gotta have. We gotta have the certain amount of development, that little bit of fullness there, that roundness that we can see from that front pose. But, you know, it's not super the focus of anything in the lower body and wellness. We want to be symmetrical, but we really don't want to take away from the glutes or take away from the quads. So hamstrings are in their own symmetry and their own ratio there. Now, conditioning wise, let's just talk about that again real quick. Not deep cuts, not deep striations, not graininess, not showing the muscle. Like, you can debate that, again, the glute ham tie. You could say, wow, that clearly looks like a very deep cut, Coach, right? Well, it's, again, because of the muscle development, okay? Glutes, if these were super striated, if this were super, super lean, you would see literally the fibers of the glute muscles going here like you do in leaner divisions. You'll see that in women's physique. You'll see that in, the men's divisions. You'll see that where basically the athletes are much leaner, so you're going to show all the threads of the glute and things like that. That's not what's going to happen here, okay? Because these athletes, again, they're at the softer level of conditioning. They're still showing everything they need to, some soft lines, not deep cuts, not deep striations, okay? So that's what I want to, to give you the whole idea. That's really what makes this division, its own division, is the fact that lower body is so dominant. It's all coming together. And remember, this is what judges want to see all around across the board. If it's your first show, if you're trying to get a pro card, if you already are a pro, is the criteria. Understand that. Figure out how to do that. Some big mistakes a lot of wellness athletes have been making recently is doing too much upper body. Okay, getting too symmetrical, trying to push muscularity, trying to really, enhance everything, come up with bigger arms, bigger lats, bigger. But the problem is you have to remember this is an asymmetrical division. Judges want to see the asymmetricalness. They want to see the upper body being smaller overall than the lower, and it's just the way it goes. Do not be overdoing the upper body training, and make sure that you're getting these muscles in prime symmetry if you want to compete in this division and do well at any level. Okay, first show, NPC, nationals, all this is what they want to see. So if this was helpful to you, please make sure you subscribe, and remember, I have a free trial. I'll show you how to train for wellness if you want. You can ask me questions in the comments anytime. I get to those all the time. And also follow us on Instagram if you're not following us over there, because Instagram, we got a whole bunch of other content that I don't do on YouTube and things like that I think you'd really enjoy. So check us out at Team Flex on Instagram, and thank you guys for watching. I'll be back with some more videos soon. Coach Rye is out.